So I would like to thank everyone here tonight for your commitment and dedication to the resource and manufacturing sector businesses of Canada. Prior to the last provincial election, Doug Ford promised that he'd have a team of all-stars, and those all-stars are here tonight. So I'd sincerely like to thank Doug Ford and Rod Phillips and Vic Fidelli and Todd Smith and everyone else for taking the time to support the coalition. So later in March, as Jocelyn mentioned, we'll hold a summit on East-West initiatives to bring back a healthy economy to the home we share as citizens of Canada. We need Canadians to know how important the oil and gas sector is to our daily lives, how far-reaching its benefits are, and the integral part it plays in the health of our economy today and far into the future. So since no one has mentioned climate change yet, let me. Climate. So in my opinion, here we need to separate the science from the politics, because I'm not a climatologist, I'm not a scientist, I'm not even a Scientologist. So science aside, one thing I do know is that an absolute truth presented by the media, celebrities, and left politicians is not science. When these people scream down debate and present deliberate false information, it makes me very suspicious. The CBC reported a little while back on television as fact that 11,000 scientists agree on the climate emergency. Rebel Media determined that of those 11,000 signatures, there wasn't a scientist among them. It just makes me very suspicious. So possibly there's something else going on here. All scientific study strives to explain the world definitively. In very few cases are these studies open and shut as they are portrayed with climate change. What we hear from our federal government, backed by like-minded media and governments around the world, is we are in a climate crisis. What is never stated is that these are predictions based on theory and climate models. If this was pure science, there would be debate between theories. But as it has been presented tonight, it's completely shut down. There's no discussion on what causes it. So here's where I leave the science and speak about the political agenda dealing with climate change. Everyone knows without being told that climate changes. So politically speaking, someone who is unsure of the cause can be rightfully labeled a heretic by someone who is sure. Those who are sure are righteous and therefore have the moral high ground to make money on it and tax you for it. This is the political catch-22 that allows governments to take away your rights, your livelihood, your free speech, while being completely hypocritical on CO2. Labrador and Newfoundland wish to drill for oil in the Flemish Pass Basin. The federal government is allowing the China National Offshore Oil Corporation to drill. This should be absolutely reciprocal with any project in Alberta, Saskatchewan, or any other province for that matter. The feds justify this as a science-based decision to allow the Chinese to drill for oil in the ocean. Science somehow doesn't apply to anything that doesn't fit the federal government's agenda. How are the global efforts to fight man-made climate change served by supporting Chinese offshore drilling and not Alberta development? Is it somehow safer to drill for oil in the ocean, insert BP Gulf disaster here, than it is to just pull it out of the tar sands, leaving the sand behind? Why is our federal government investing in oil and gas pipelines in China while continuing to snub pipelines here at home? We sell millions of tons of British Columbia coal to burn in Chinese electricity furnaces. Why is the Canada Pension Plan Board, a federal agency controlled by the Trudeau government, investing $141 million in the Chinese coal industry? The answer, the Trudeau Liberals suffer from a severe case of hypocrisy. Listen to what the Canadian oil and gas companies are telling you. I have, and it is painfully obvious, that the more oil and gas we export, the less CO2 will enter the shared global atmosphere. If we think CO2 may be the culprit causing the planet to warm, then by all means, let's not take the chance and reduce the emissions of CO2. But please, let's have some serious debate, and let's really look at the global politics that are pushing the redistribution of wealth they are attempting to create in the holy name of climate. So on education, and this is an important part, and the initiative within our coalition was started by Jocelyn again. So an economically healthy country produces things, everything from cars to cucumbers. People must be shown that their vote, deciding the party that forms government, has a direct effect on the health of these businesses, also known as their employers. We need better jobs provided by oil and gas, manufacturing, mining, food production, and many others, industries with better pay and job satisfaction. When people are not happy with their jobs, they may take it out on their employer and on society with a protest vote. And the worse this situation gets, the more likely those votes shift towards the left and the false promises that go with it. This is what drives the union mentality of us against them, that replaces words with vandalism, prevents dialogue, and makes so-called professional teachers block a minister's car with threatening placard waving and screaming. When it comes to public sector unions, this mentality manifests as blackmail. I'm pleased to say that our current Ontario Education Minister, Stephen Lecce, who is both brave and articulate, is making us proud by not bending to that blackmail. This brings me to the new coalition started by us, Canadians for Excellence in Education. Our schools need help, not financial help. God knows they get enough money to do the job. They need a change in curriculum focus. More specific, the unions that dictate to their members a direction in what they should teach need to understand that government, the people, dictate curriculum. Just go to a teacher union website and view the curriculum modules they post to see for yourself. This is where the educational needs of business, hence the future jobs for those students, must also be a priority. What's the first thing that makes for effective education? English and French and the ability to communicate. Every subject requires a teacher to communicate to their students effectively. Once established, the second priority includes the disciplines of math, science, history, art, etc. The third priority, life skills, how to hammer a nail, cook a meal, budget expenses, look after your health, play a sport, self-educate. Then the rest of life and love should include the family, supplemented by schools when health is involved, both mental and physical. Today, the schools have this upside down. Perhaps they don't like to deal with the harder subjects. Schools have become somewhat directionless experimental playgrounds. Here is a disturbing example of a paper I obtained from an Ontario high school. It was handed out to grade 10 students in 2018 as part of a civics class exercise, and is titled, "Where Are You in the Political Spectrum?" The scale puts the NDP left of center, Conservatives right of center, and in my opinion, wrongly puts the Liberals in the center. This first statement of 20 is the most telling. It reads, "The death penalty is wrong and should not be allowed under any circumstance. If you disagree, you're deemed conservative. The last time I looked, every political party would agree because that's the law of the land. So what are we teaching in schools? Could it be that if you're conservative, you're a bad person?" Seems very union member driven, very us against them, and very divisive. The teachers' unions need to be educated that schools only exist because of the revenue provided by business. They need to stop fighting and defaming us as they do in union-funded attack ads. Where on earth do they think the money is coming from? Outside of Canada, there are schools that actually approach business to ask for direction specific to the needs of future jobs in their immediate jurisdictions. Imagine that. To their credit, some Canadian universities and colleges do participate with business, but by then, it's often too late. We need to make young students aware of the possibilities for the future. The current Ontario government deserves credit for moving in this direction, but we must move quicker. The curriculum needs overhauling, and business needs to be consulted. So to wrap up, our democracy is precious, and that's why we fight to maintain a reasonable political climate that does not swing to an extreme. Politics has become about painting your opponent with an extreme brush to provide a fear-based campaign. This is the politics of division. We don't seem to know any other way to get through to voters because voters in general are unwilling to look past the politics to see the policies. The current federal government has delivered on two promises: the legalization of cannabis and the carbon tax. Now they focus on climate change only. largely because the metrics for success will never be available. Did CO2 get reduced? Did that change the climate back? It's pretty easy to get a buy on performance that can't be verified. Here's what a hypothetical list for the feds might include. How about clean water and proper sanitation for northern communities? Pipelines that can bring prosperity to those same First Nations communities. Pipelines that bring oil and gas to the world to reduce coal, wood, and dung incineration. Pipelines that provide billions in additional revenue. Better treatment of our veterans, and that's a big one. Freedom of speech, fair elections without bribing anyone, more efficient operation of government, less waste, new laws on political interference and corruption, new laws against false election ads, unbiased, not as determined by progressives, support for business that provides jobs and the revenue needed for hospitals, roads, and schools. According to the federal government's recent throne speech, climate emergency trumps everything on this list. I would surmise this is due to a shortfall in their skill sets. There's a great need in Canada to have a strong political party with the necessary expertise to deal with real issues. The federal Conservatives, although having won the popular vote and gaining seats, failed to form government. It is our view that the Conservatives need to improve the message. There's a deficiency in the area of marketing, probably a trait of those who actually value respect and decorum. However, that and a buck will get you a cup of coffee. We sometimes hear from Conservative candidates who think they should compete with liberal ideas and do it just a bit better. In the last election, their platform included a slightly more aggressive stance on CO2 emissions than the Liberals. That's hogwash. That's not differentiation. Every business knows that to succeed, you can't be an also-ran. Conservatives need to set themselves apart. They need to provide hope and maintain integrity. They need to support job creators. When Trudeau said he would let the budget balance itself, what he meant was, I'm letting go of the steering wheel while I focus on spending your tax dollars to get reelected, and the country can steer itself. We need a government that puts the economy first, grabs hold of that steering wheel. We need a balanced budget supported by a thriving economy and a more efficient government to improve the lives of all Canadians. We need coalitions like this to help to get the message out. We need a greater voice for business, for the free market, for prosperity, to win over the progressives' agenda that will destroy the middle class while the elites get richer. Join our coalition. Help get the message out. And to our Conservative friends, we will help get that message out, but we also need you to up your game for elections to come. Thank you very much.